Greetings everyone, it's Elliot here, back for another video talking about Blu-rays and the Criterion collection, because just a few days ago Criterion announced their titles that they're releasing in June 2020, and oh boy, it's a good one. Before I get into this whole thing, if you're new here, my name's Elliot, it's great to have you here. I'm a big fan of Blu-rays, as you can probably see from my backdrop. I love the Criterion collection and all kinds of boutique Blu-ray labels. So if you enjoy this kind of stuff, get involved with the channel, subscribe, like, and get commenting, because I say this in every video now, but we do have a really good group of people commenting on all of my videos, providing great comments about the films that I talk about and providing further recommendations. Honestly, you guys watching this video, you're so knowledgeable about film, way beyond my knowledge. I honestly learn a lot from you, so if you're new here and you fancy getting involved in that, by all means, please stick around. Criterion have announced 5 titles for their June 2020 release slate, and I'm so excited for all 5 of these. A disclaimer, I haven't actually seen any of them, which is quite a rarity. I've usually seen a couple of them that they announce each month, but this time I haven't seen any of them. But all 5 have been on my watch list for absolutely ages. Well, one of them's a brand new release that only just came out, but that's been on my watch list ever since it was premiered at the festival circuit last year. I'm so excited for these, so my comments won't be that substantive. They're not going to go into much detail about why these films are good. It's mainly just why I'm excited, and I'm hoping I can share some of that enthusiasm with you, get you on board, and it's just such a good time to be a film fan and a Criterion fan. I will just say that while my thoughts in this video aren't going to be going into much detail, my good friend and our good friend Dice K Beppu has done a video on his channel, which is almost an hour long, and he's going into full depth of why these films are worth getting. I think he's seen most of them, unlike myself. Well worth watching. I watched it before doing this, and any comments I make in this video are going to be nowhere near as good as his. So you might as well just turn off my video and go and watch his now. No, that's bad for my channel. Don't stay here. Please stay here. But no, he's done a great video, so definitely check that out after you've watched this one. So let's just get into this whole thing. I'm going to go through all 5 of these in the order that they're being released, which is also the order that they're on the Criterion website, which I will handily be taking some information from. The first title that they've announced for June is An Unmarried Woman, directed by Paul Mazursky. This is one that I'm excited for because I'm only familiar with Paul Mazursky from 2 other films. There's, I forget which order it is. Is it Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice? That's the name of the film. There's an Arrow Academy release of that film. That was a really interesting film, which, I've greatly enjoyed. And he also directed Moscow on the Hudson with, of course, Robin Williams. So I'm really interested in checking out An Unmarried Woman. I think it's one of his higher rated films. Like, I go off Letterboxd, so I'd like to check the ratings on there. I think it's one of his most highly rated films on there. And it sounds really fascinating about a woman who gets separated from her husband because he ends up going off with a younger woman. And it's all about her dealing with this new identity of being single and ready to mingle. For those of you that are interested in some of the facts, this is spine number 1032. Gosh, we're really getting up there now, aren't we? It seems like only yesterday that we got spine number 1000. From 1978, 130 minutes long. Yeah, some of the special features as well. Audio commentary, interviews, and recording of Mazursky speaking at the American Film Institute. There's an essay which is probably in the booklet. Looks like a packed disc, really interesting title, not one that I would instinctively think Criterion would go for after looking at some of the reviews of the film, not because it's a bad film. It kind of fits that space of mid-70s films that were made not as blockbusters and not quite as fully independent films. They were kind of middle of the industry studios that were making these films. And I don't think that exists these days. You've got big blockbusters and you've got independent films. The studios, that kind of fill the middle don't really exist. I mean, you could argue that a production studio like A24, you know, they distribute a lot of great films these days that some people would label as indie films, but really they're not, because they're fully funded by studios and they seem to be getting bigger and bigger budgets. So maybe they fill that space. That's a whole other discussion for another video. But really interesting title, An Unmarried Woman, coming to the Criterion Collection in June. Next up, we've got The Cameraman, starring the one and only Buster Keaton, directed by Edward Sedgwick. And I think Keaton has a director's credit on this film as well, although that's not specifically listed on Criterion's website. It's spine number 1033, came out in 1928. That's quite old now, isn't it, when you think about it? A swift 69 minutes long. I'm really excited for this one. I love Buster Keaton. You probably can't make it out in the back because it's quite blurry, but I have some of the Eureka Masters of Cinema Buster Keaton box sets. There's one with all his short films, or a lot of his short films in, and then there's one with The General and Sherlock Jr., and there's a new box set coming out very soon, and I've got it on pre-order, so I'm a big Keaton fan. Cannot wait for The Cameraman. Keaton is a performer that you don't really get performers like him these days. Of course, big films have stunt crews and stunt coordinators and stuntmen, and they do a lot of great work that really goes unnoticed. You know, not a lot of people are talking about their favourite stuntmen or stunt choreographers. But back in the day, Keaton pretty much did it all. He was the OG. And films like The Cameraman, I'm sure, are probably showing a lot of what he was so good at. So I really can't wait. And I'm sure that if you're a fan of Keaton, this will have been on your radar for a long time. So very excited. The next title is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, directed by Celine Sciamma. This is a film that came out just last year, and it came out in 2020 here in the UK. I missed it in cinemas. I wasn't active enough to go out and see it in the cinema, which I sorely regret. I was too busy seeing Parasite 3 times. But yeah, I really want to see this film. I'm so excited that it's getting a Criterion release, you know, this soon into its life. Celine Sciamma has made some incredible films before, like Girlhood and Tomboy. So I'm very excited to see this. A lot of people have talked about the cinematography of this film, the costume design and production design. And honestly, I don't know much about the story. I really don't. So I'm very excited going into this blind. I want to talk about the artwork for the Criterion release because it's just stunning. And I believe that this is artwork that's used within the film, it's artwork that's created by the person that made artwork for the film. I've absolutely butchered that, but I hope that made sense. So it's spine number 1034, came out in 2019, 2 hours long, French. Special features wise, let's have a look at what's on here. Conversations between Celine Sciamma and Dana Stevens, interviews with the actors and the cinematographer, interviews with artist Hélène Delmer. So Hélène Delmer did the cover for this Criterion edition. That's what I was trying to say before, but absolutely butchered. Very excited for this film. So many people have said so much good stuff about this, so I absolutely can't wait for June. Later in June, they have Tokyo Olympiad, directed by Kon Ichikawa. This is one of the Olympic films that was part of the 100 Years of Olympic Games Criterion box set, which I sorely and sadly do not own. This release is obviously planned to line up with the Olympic Games that are happening in Japan later this summer. Now, of course, with things that are going on in the world with the coronavirus at the moment, it may not be the case that the Olympics go ahead. It's unclear at the moment. So it will be sad if the Olympics don't go ahead for obvious reasons, but also because it means the timing of this Criterion release won't quite match up with the games. So some brief info about the film from the website. Made in 1965, 170 minutes long. Originally spine number 155. So it was originally out on a DVD, I believe. and then later in the Olympics box set, and now on this Blu-ray disc. Some of the special features, I imagine that these are the special features that carry over from the Olympic box set, but I may be wrong. They may have added something new. But there's audio commentary by film historian Peter Cowie. Cowie, I think, did a lot of the special features on the Olympic box set. And then there's a documentary about Ichikawa with lots of interviews and an essay in the booklet. So looks like a really interesting release. One that you should get if you're not too sure if you want to invest in the Olympic box set, because it is expensive. You do get a lot of films in it, of course, but it's an expensive box set. So Tokyo Olympiad, great artwork as well. Brilliant artwork. So very excited for that one. And finally, the absolutely huge announcement that has had so much fanfare and has been eagerly awaited by Criterion and film fans for years and years now. I'm of course talking about Comin See, directed by L.M. Klimov. So no word of a lie, this film has been on my watch list on Letterboxd and on other websites for the best part of 5 or 6 years. I really wanted to see this film, but it just couldn't be tracked down unless you wanted to watch it in pretty crappy quality. So, of course, when Criterion announced that they were going to be releasing the new restoration of the film, everyone was just jumping for joy. And people were expecting this to be announced for a year or two now. Like, seriously, it's been teased and teased for ages. But finally, it's coming in June. I'm so glad that I held out. I do this a lot. I really do this a lot, and it drives some people crazy. People will tell me to watch a film, and they really want me to see it so that we can discuss it. And I say to them, look, if there isn't a Blu-ray copy of it, or if there isn't an ability for me to see it in really good quality and actually fully take in what the film is offering, I refuse to watch it. And people say, well, aren't you missing out? Aren't you missing out on watching this great, great film? And what I tend to say to them is, look, I'll just wait. I'll wait. And I've waited and waited years for this, and it's finally coming. I've heard so much about this film over the years. It's said to be a harrowing film displaying the horrors of war, and many people say it's one of the great Soviet cinema masterpieces. Now let's look at some of the information on the Criterion website. The film was released in 1985. It's 143 minutes long, and it's spine number 1035. Surely this film is going to be on so many people's lists for best home release of the year. I can imagine it's going to be on mine. Now, some of the special features, these are really fascinating. So there's an interview with Roger Deakins. Obviously, Roger Deakins isn't the cinematographer for this film. Roger Deakins is one of the greatest DOPs around. So it's going to be great to hear him talk about this film. There's an interview with L.M. Klimov's brother and frequent collaborator German Klimov. Flaming Memory, a 3-film documentary series featuring first-hand accounts of survivors of the genocide in Belarusia during World War II. And then there's a bunch of interviews, and there's a short film called How Comin See was filmed. If you can't tell, I'm very excited for this, and I hope you're excited for it too, because by all accounts, many people consider this one of the greatest films ever made. So to finally get it on Blu-ray, oh god, this is shaping up to be a great 2020 for Criterion. And that's your lot. That is the Criterion June 2020 slate of releases. I'm sorry that I couldn't provide much more of a substantive commentary on these films. One day I will be able to, because I'll be picking up all of these in June and I'll be watching them. So I hope to talk about these films on the channel at a later date. If you're particularly excited for any of these films coming to the Criterion collection, do let me know in the comments below. Let me know if there's any particular special features you're excited for, and let me know if any of these films are ones that you hadn't even heard of, but now, after listening to me ramble, you're kind of excited for. I'd love to hear that. I will wrap this video up now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again on a future video, and stay well, stay healthy, and keep watching great films.